have an exhibit?
Yes, Your Honor. Is it okay if I just read off the exhibit numbers that we have either pre-admitted or stipulated to?
So let's do, and the other side, you have a list that you can verify when you read them off.
Yes, I'm going to.
So just follow along, you know, if one is missed or one's not supposed to be said was. So yeah, read off the numbers that are either pre-admitted or stipulated to admit, and once you do that, we'll make sure that's all okay, and then I'll say all those are admitted.
And Madam Clerk, do you have the list handy to?
I didn't get a list. Oh, they're talking about the general?
It's our plaintiff's exhibit list. I will read out the exhibit numbers on that are going to be admitted.
Thank you.
Just let me know whenever you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. Exhibit 1, plaintiff's exhibit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, 20, 21, 26, 31, 34, 35, 36, 37, 39, 40, 41, 44, 47, 125, 1 starts at 203, 204, 205, 206, 207, 208, 209, 210, 211, 212, 'and the next is the series 299 through 328. Would you like me to?
That's
Exhibits 229 through 328. Next is 338 through 348. So 556, 560, 596, 600, 603, 622, 623, 624, 628, 629, 635, 687, 696, 794, 797, 798, courts indulgence, 666, 674, 'and I believe that is it for right now.
Did those all match?
The only two that I don't have, don't have on my list, sorry, I'm gonna wait for Eric, who's talking about. We can do it now. The only two, sorry, let's do it.
Yeah, Your Honor, we'd also move to admit 441 and 605, which are tissue slides for Mr. Morales.
The only two I have a question about, Eric, are 666 and 674, which are medical, according to you guys' list, are medical records for HERA. Are you guys doing a subset of medical records or submitting the entire hospital bill, hospital records?
I think this is akin, Matt, to what Mr. Parker raised. I think it may be cleaner to just do the subset so as to not task the jury with having to dig through hundreds of pages of medical records.
That's fine. I actually 100% agree with you. I'm asking because these are large medical records, and I would prefer not, I'm not going to agree to admit those if you're going to do a subset. That's all.
Okay, so we'll do a subset, and we can mark each of these next in order, starting with 674-0131, 696-001.
So hold on.
Hang on.
Let's save that, because they're in the hallway.
Okay.
So 666, 674, you know, we can address it at lunch, subsets. But 441 and 605, defendants are okay with?
I am, Your Honor.
Okay.
So, Your Honor, the only correction would be that exhibits 666 and 674, those will not be admitted.
Right.
And we'll correct that with just the subset and submit it after.
Yeah, and that's fine. Okay, so exhibits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 20, 21, 26, 31, 34, 35, 36, 37, 39, 40, 41, 44, 47, 125, 203, 204, 205, 206, 207, 208, 209, 210, 211, 212, 299 through and including 328, 338 through and including 348, 556, 560, 596, 600, 603, 622, 623, 624, 628, 629, 635, 687, 696, 794, 797, 798, 441, and 605 are all admitted. And then, yeah, we'll address the subsets of those other two, like at lunch or in our break or whatever. Anything else?
You know, the issue that we brought up yesterday, we can handle that after lunch.
Okay.
My thought is it's not going to be an issue with these next couple of witnesses.
Okay. No, thank you. And I knew there was another thing, and now you, yeah, thank you. Okay.
Please be seated.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your service and for your patience. So you all know both sides have agreed, as you've heard reference to already, but both sides have agreed to stipulate or agree to admit a large number of exhibits, which helps move the trial along. And so we were going over those to confirm, and again, help speed everything up quite a bit. So thank you for your patience while we were doing that. Our plaintiffs ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
We're going to recall Dr. Brian Datnow. Morning, ladies and gentlemen.
This way, sir.
Morning.
I'm getting it. You remain standing, raise your right hand, face the clerk to be sworn in, please.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated. State and spell your first and last name for the record.
First name is Brian, D-R-I-A-N. Last name is Datnow, D-A-T-N-O-W.
Good morning, Dr. Datnow. Would you tell the jury what kind of doctor you are?
I'm a surgical pathologist. I'm board certified in both anatomic and clinical pathology. Anatomic pathology is to do with tissues, like biopsies, and clinical pathology is to do with body fluids like blood, urine, spinal fluid. I went to medical school in South Africa, in Johannesburg, the University of Witwatersrand. Should I spell that? W-I-T-E-R-S-R-A-N-D. I did a clinical internship, 6 months of internal medicine, 6 months of surgery. I left South Africa in 1972 and moved to Boston, where I specialized in pathology at the Peter Brent Brigham Hospital and Harvard Medical School in Boston. After completion of my residency, I went into practice. The last 20 years, I practiced at the University of California, where I was a full clinical professor and teacher, dealing with pathology.
Okay, and in the 80s, 90s, what was your job?
My job as a surgical pathologist was to evaluate biopsy specimens and specimens that were removed by doctors, and I looked these under the microscope and made a diagnosis.
Okay, and just explain to the jury generally what a tissue slide is.
Once the tissue is removed, it goes through a process, and then it's cut into very thin sections, stained with various stains, placed on a glass slide, and then we look under a microscope and study what is under the microscope and make our diagnosis and our evaluation.
Do they do tissue slides of the liver?
I've looked at hundreds and maybe thousands of slides of liver, as well as many other tissues.
And you told the jury about stains. Could you elaborate on what a stain is and why they do stains?
The basic stain that we look at is called hematoxylin and eosin. Hematoxylin is a blue stain, and it stains nuclei. Eosin is a pink stain, so we see two different colors. And then we have various special stains that we can use that will highlight different areas of the tissue. One of them that we use a lot in liver is called trichrome, 3 different colors. And the most important thing that it does, it stains fibrous tissue or scar tissue blue. And the background is going to be a pinkish red color. But there are many other stains that we use, including immunohistochemistry. We've come a long way over the years.
And so trichrome means 3 different colors.
It says it's 3 different chemicals, but we only see 2 different colors.
Okay, and why do you want to see 2 different colors when you look at these liver tissues?
It will highlight different areas that we want to see. And as I mentioned, the trichrome will highlight scar tissue or fibrous tissue. And that stains blue. And the background will be red or pink.
And have you looked at materials in this case?
I have.
Can you just tell me briefly what you looked at?
I looked at liver slides with both H&E stain, the basic stain, as well as trichrome stain. I also looked at reticulin stain, iron stain, and those are the most important ones that I used for evaluation.
Okay, and you're familiar with the name of Severin Morales?
I am.
Have you looked at slides pertaining to Severin Morales?
I have.
And have you looked at any peer review articles?
I have looked at several articles, yes.
Any in particular with regards to this case?
Yes, I looked at an article that came out of University of Utah Children's Hospital. Burke, it's the main author is Burke.
And that article had a number of pathology slides in it?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with liver pathology 101, okay? Jane, can I have a picture of the liver, please? Okay, doctor, can you see that? Or do you want to get up here?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Pointer.
So the liver,
Wait 1 second, doctor, I'm not going to make you. There you go.
thank you. This is the liver. It's located right under your diaphragm on the right side of your body. Just above that is your diaphragm, and then the lung is just above that. This is the stomach. This is the duodenum. So this is the start of the bowel, and then it goes on. This is the pancreas. So the liver has blood vessels that go to it. So the reds are going to be the arteries. The blues are going to be the veins. This is the gallbladder. The liver function is to detoxify the blood, and it secretes it, the products that it has detoxified go into these green bile ducts, and there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of them all over the liver. And as they get through, they go from bigger ducts, so you have and they eventually land up through the one hepatic duct, second hepatic duct, and then it empties into the gallbladder, and this is the common bile duct that goes down into the bowel right near the pancreas. So the flow of the bile starts at things you can't see with the naked eye, and eventually ends up in the gallbladder and then excreted into the bowel.
How do you spell bile?
Bile is B-I-L-E.
And what does bile do?
Bile is a breakdown product of various things out of the blood that is manufactured by the liver, and it's used partly in digestion, and a lot of it is just excreted as waste.
Okay, so when you say the toxin leaves the body through the bile, how does it actually do that?
Sorry?
How does the toxin actually leave the body with the bile?
It gets into the bowel and gets excreted into the fecal matter.
Okay. And you said there's thousands of bile ducts in the liver?
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands. Okay. Now, what is a hepatic duct?
There are two major hepatic ducts, the right and the left, and they drain into the common bile duct. They also, when the bile gets stored in the gallbladder, and when a person has a fatty meal, the gallbladder contracts and secretes the bile into the bowel. It helps with digestion, and a lot of that is just toxic waste and just gets excreted. And if there's some sort of a blockage anywhere from the microscopic to the large, then bile will build up. And you've probably heard of the word jaundice. When someone has yellow in their eye, that's because there's excess bile that has got into the bloodstream and gets deposited around the body. And the way you can see it best is in the white of the eye. So that's anything that obstructs. For example, if someone has gallstones, you've probably heard of gallstones. These gallstones are stored here, but they can block the flow of bile, and the patient will present with a lot of pain but they'll also present with, probably with jaundice as well.
And if you block the bile ducts, is another symptom you get encephalopathy?
The encephalopathy will occur when the liver function is interfered with. So anything that interferes with liver function, and the liver is absolutely essential to life. If it's compromised in any way, then toxins will accumulate, particularly ammonia and other chemicals will accumulate in the bloodstream and go to the brain and cause an encephalopathy. That's it's like a clouded brain function.
And that is a picture of a full liver, correct?
That is a full liver, yes.
Shane, can I have a cross-section, please?
So this would, if you took a microscope, and this is very much enlarged, this would be called a liver unit. And if this, in the center is a central vein, and then all around this unit are a whole lot of portal areas. Portal, you know what a portal is, like a gate. So this is a portal area, and each portal area, and there are millions in the liver. Each one has got one bile duct, one artery, and one vein. And the blood eventually goes into the center here. There are a lot of small blood vessels around here, and these are the liver cells that are in yellow. When these are functioning well, the bile is secreted into the bile ducts, the blood flow is normal. When these are compromised, the liver cells are compromised, is when we get a problem. And we'll talk about that as we go along.
And compromised, what do you mean by that?
If there's something that affects the liver cells, and that can be anything, you've probably heard of alcohol causing liver problems. There are various drugs and various other toxins that have secondary effects on the liver, and they will cause these liver cells to, firstly, they will go through a process called ballooning degeneration, and they will eventually die. And when tissue dies in the body, it is replaced by a scar. It's the same as if you cut your skin, you will get a scar. It's the way the body tries to heal. So if you kill off these cells here, for example, say these portal areas are intact, and these over here have been compromised, these cells will die, and they will be replaced by fibrous tissue or scar tissue. And that's what the big problem is. Scar tissue causes, firstly, it surrounds each portal area, and we'll show that. So each portal area will be surrounded by scar tissue, and then the next step, there will be an entity called bridging fibrosis, where the scar tissue bridges from one portal area to another, and eventually it surrounds the whole portal area with a scar, and that's cirrhosis. But starts off with bridging fibrosis and eventually ends up in cirrhosis. That is irreversible. Once that occurs, that liver is compromised. And the more it destroys liver cells, eventually the patient will go into liver failure.
You mentioned that there's toxins that can cause the scarring.
Yes.
What does hydrazine do if it gets in the liver?
Hydrazine is known to be toxic to liver cells, and it destroys liver cells.
And did you explain what cholestasis is?
Cholestasis.
Yeah.
Cholestasis stasis means staying in place, something is static. Cholestasis means the bile is static because the ducts have been compromised. The ducts are being strangled by the fibrous tissue. I remember I told you about the bile ducts. They're strangled by the fibrous tissue, and then the bile stays in one place. It stains the liver, but it also gets into the bloodstream, and we talked about what it does when it gets into the bloodstream.
Okay, you mentioned fibrosis, so fibrosis is a scar.
Fibrosis is a scar.
Is it normal for children that are 7 months, 2 years, 5 years old to have fibrosis?
It is not normal for anyone to have fibrosis.
Okay, and fibrosis, is that good or bad?
Bad.
Why?
It strangles the liver. It strangles liver cells, but it also strangles the bile ducts, and it also strangles the blood vessels in the portal area.
And you mentioned ballooning degeneration. Can you explain that a little more?
The cell, when it starts degenerating, the cell balloons out. And instead of being a nice intact cell, it balloons out, and that's on its way to cell death.
And what causes ballooning degeneration?
Anything that's toxic to the liver cell will cause ballooning degeneration.
Okay, doctor, is there such a thing called bile duct proliferation or multiplying?
Speaking in a way in which it's understandable, the bile ducts are starting to get constricted by the scar tissue, and they don't think for themselves, but their reaction is to duplicate themselves, and it's called bile duct proliferation. So that's one of the signs that the bile system is being constricted by the fibrous scar tissue, and the bile duct proliferation, we can see that under the microscope.
So if the original bile duct is damaged, the body makes more bile ducts.
It's an attempt to get the bile flowing, so it makes more, and it's actually not a good thing.
And can you see bile duct proliferation on tissue slides?
Yes, you can.
Can you see cholestasis on tissue slides?
Yes, you can.
And how about fibrosis?
Yes.
Now, if I can have my next slide screen. So you mentioned the term bridging fibrosis.
Yeah.
And that just means scar, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Fibrosis means scar. And insult, that would be?
Any toxin.
Okay.
Okay, so here we've got these cells. You see, normally the liver cells are like this pink. That's the nucleus, that's the cytoplasm of the cell. And you can see these are starting to look very clear. This is starting to be ballooning degeneration. And sometimes we also see fatty change, it's steatosis. So what we see here is a portal area, and you see a lot of blue. Remember I explained?
There's a number of ports on this slide. Can you explain the jury?
Yeah, so fibrosis is staining blue. You remember I told you about the trichrome stain? It starts in the portal area, which is around here, and then it starts spread. There's a central vein, by the way. So this is the liver unit. The fibrosis then starts extending beyond the portal area and goes down, and this is called bridging. It goes from one portal area to another. And then eventually it forms one single nodule, and that's cirrhosis.
Okay, that's what's called a cirrhotic nodule?
Correct.
Shane, can I have my slide on it?
Okay, so as I mentioned, when you get complete surrounding of a nodule with fibrosis, that's cirrhosis. And the fibrous tissue scar stains blue on the trichrome stain. Once it gets to this stage, it's irreversible. If it's early days, when there's just ballooning degeneration, if you take the toxin away, there's a chance that the cell will recover. But once you've got the scarring, it's irreversible. And obviously the liver function is severely compromised, and We'll show you some slides from the patient where we've seen how this fibrous scar surrounds the normal liver tissue. And normally, you should see just a minimal amount of fibrous tissue in the portal area because it's sort of keeping the tissue together. But once it starts expanding and bridging, that's when we have the problem.
Okay, Doctor, why don't we start with some actual slides? Let's start with the Burke article.
Okay.
And, these are slides from people who are not involved in this case, but they drink real water, correct?
Correct.
And could you, looks like there's a little more blue on the right slides.
Okay,
Shane,
so we can show you this. For example, here is the portal area. Central vein would be in this area. There's increased blue tissue, meaning increased fibrosis here in the portal area. But you see this snake of blue fibrous tissue that's extending, and it's going, if it goes up to the next portal area, that's total bridging. And if it goes all the way around, that's cirrhosis. So here you can...
Could you just show a quick bridge?
Yeah, well, here's one bridge going across, here's another one going across, there's another one going across there. On this side, you can see portal areas here. This is an artifact, it's not real. But this is the portal area, and there's a bile duct, there's another bile duct, so there's bile duct proliferation here. But this is very scarred, and you can see the fibrous scar bridging going out down in those areas.
Okay, so again, this is a scientific article about someone else to drink the water.
Correct.
Not someone in this case.
Yes, that's correct.
And this shows bridging fibrosis.
That's correct.
All right, let's take a look at Severin's slides. Jane, can I have exhibit 441?
Okay.
Just setting up the background a little bit, Doctor.
Yeah.
These were slides that there was a tissue sample taken from Severin sometime in November 2020.
That's correct.
And these are slides from the tissue samples.
That's correct.
Those are your notes on those?
So these are my notes, and this is the slide that I reviewed. And there's a portal area there. There's a portal area here. This is the central vein. Several things I want to point out. The most important thing is the bridging fibrosis. Here's the portal area. There's this bridging fibrosis to the next portal area. There it is to the next portal area, and there to the next portal area. Now the biopsy is very limited. It's a thin piece of tissue, maybe a little thicker than a needle. And so it doesn't give you the full picture, but most likely this joins up, and that would be a cirrhotic nodule, cirrhosis. But what I can say here is about 75% of the nodule is surrounded, at least on this section, and this is bridging fibrosis on a scale of 3 to 4, where 1 would be mild, 4 would be cirrhosis. This would be a 3 out of 4. But I suspect that this would be a full cirrhosis.
Wow, we have that.
Can I just show one more thing here?
Sure.
These are bile ducts in here. Normally in a portal area, as I mentioned, there's one. You can see they're proliferating all over. They're being choked by the scar tissue.
So Severin had bile duct proliferation.
Yes.
He had bridging fibrosis.
Bridging fibrosis. Here is ballooning degeneration.
And you can see at least 75% of a cirrhotic nodule.
Yeah, correct.
And why can't we see the bottom again?
The tissue's cut off because the biopsy is small enough. If they took a bigger piece, then we would have seen the full nodule.
Okay, and I think we have another slide, Shane. Yeah, there we go.
This is the same patient, but a more of a bird's eye view. It's a lower magnification. And this is a portal area. This really illustrates the bile duct proliferation. These bile ducts are choked by the scar tissue. The blue scar tissue, fibrosis, scar tissue, scar tissue. If you look here, this is almost a full nodule. That's the central vein. So this is severe bridging, most likely cirrhosis.
Did you see more than one cirrhotic nodule there?
There's one here. There's this one here. There's this one probably here. Another one there. And this is irreversible. This would not recover.
And the one on the left, is that about 75, 80%?
This looks to me, you can see there's blue going around here. We may be missing a little bit here, but that's about 80% of bridging. But this is all totally abnormal.
No question in mind that somebody has cirrhotic nodules.
I would say with 99% certainty it's cirrhotic, but I can't say to you on this slide that I can show it to you. What I can say is, with my experience of seeing hundreds, if not thousands of these cases, that this is really part of cirrhosis.
Now, have you compared 7 slides to the Burke slides we started with?
They are
Okay, can
identical.
I have those?
I believe this is Severin. This is the article that was published in the literature. And it's identical.
Severin's a little worse, though.
In this picture, Severin is worse.
All right, Doctor, you can take a stand again. So let's see if we can sum up the key points. Shane, turn on the last slide, please. So, does Severin have really deep fibrosis on these November 2020 slides?
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry, Doctor.
okay,
No, go ahead. Step on back now.
okay,
You realize.
yeah. So Severin has bridging fibrosis in the November 2020 slides that I reviewed. He has multiple nodules in that area,
Cirrhotic nodules.
cirrhotic nodules. Bridging fibrosis is permanent. Cirrhotic nodules is one step further, and that's permanent. I've never seen bridging fibrosis or cirrhotic nodules in a child, certainly not in a 22-month-old. Bridging fibrosis is abnormal, no matter what the age is. And it's scarring, it's permanent, and it's caused by something killing off liver cells, and the body is trying to regenerate with scar tissue, and that's bad for the liver.
Is this any different than cirrhosis like you see from people who've been drinking for 40, 50 years?
If someone who's been abusing alcohol for many years, this is what you would see as well. Because alcohol in excess amounts is toxic to the liver.
Thank you, Doctor.
While we're getting set up, could you pull Dr. Datnow's deposition transcript, please, because I'm getting that with you. I'm just going to wait for the court staff.
Okay.
Ready to go, Doctor?
Yes,
All right. Dr. Datnow, first, ladies and gentlemen, jury, good morning. Dr. Datnow, my name is Matt Kaufmann. I'm one of the attorneys for Real Water. I'm going to ask you some questions. Do you remember your deposition in this case? It was taken in April of 2024?
yes, I do.
Okay. Now, during your deposition, you said you were a, quote, morphologist. Can you explain to us what that is?
As I explained, as a pathologist, I make my diagnoses based on what the morphology or the appearance that I see under the microscope.
Did you, so since you testified today about Mr. Severin Morales' biopsy slide, did you review any of Severin Morales' clinical records?
I looked at some of the background, yes.
Okay. Do you review any records from any other plaintiff in this case?
I did.
And that would be Hera Carrier, correct?
I don't recall if I saw that patient's clinical information.
The other, let me ask you something. Okay, so as far as Mr. Morales, during your deposition, I asked you a couple of questions about Mr. Morales' slide. Do you remember that?
Yes,
Okay. Specifically, let's start with, first, I asked you if you graded Mr. Morales' fibrosis. Do you remember that?
yes.
Do you remember what you answered during your deposition?
I thought it was a 2 to 3 based on what I had on the screen, on the slide.
Okay, and that's different than what you testified to today, correct, sir?
If you remember what I said I can't say with 100% certainty that it's cirrhosis, but based on my experience, when you see that amount of bridging, is most likely cirrhosis. And that's, as I mentioned, I said based on a scale of 1 to 4, I would give this a 3, which is similar to what I said before.
Okay. Now, I also asked you during your deposition if you, to a medical degree of medical certainty, believe Severin Morales had cirrhosis, and you told me you couldn't say that at the time. Do you remember that?
And I said that, I may have said that, but as I mentioned to you, based on my experience, it's most likely cirrhosis. And as I said today, I cannot say with 100% certainty that it's cirrhosis.
Can you say with 51% certainty?
I would say in the 90% certainty.
Now, one of the other things I asked you during your deposition was, do you know if fibrosis is reversible in minors?
I have no idea. I know that in adults it's not reversible, and my understanding is once fibrosis is there, it is irreversible. It's the same as any scar in any part of the body.
So if I cut my hand, the scar's never going to go away?
Never going to go away. It may fade, but it'll never go away.
I've cut off the tips of both my thumbs, and I can't see either one of those scars anymore, doctor. Is that
Well,
just fading?
If I biopsied, I'd look at it under the microscope and I'd tell you you've got a scar there.
Fair enough. It's fair to say that every patient is different, right?
No two patients are identical.
So can you extrapolate one person's biopsy results to another patient?
The answer to that is you use your experience and the experience in the literature about how disease processes progress. And so, can you rephrase that question? I'm not sure what you're asking me.
Let me ask it this way. This is a question I asked you during your deposition. Can you take Mr. Morales' biopsy results and extrapolate them to another patient who happened to have acute liver failure?
The answer is we always do that. We are always looking at the literature to compare other patients who've had, for example, the same disease to see how they progress. So it's always a comparison, and it's always looking at the literature, which will have hundreds, if not thousands, of cases that you can use as a guide to how this particular case will progress or regress.
Okay. So if I understand you correctly, you use prior cases to help figure out what's going on with your current case, right?
You look at the literature, and that's not just It's the textbook literature as well as journal literature. And you look to see what the situation is. And if I'm not familiar with something, I'll immediately go to the literature and see how things are.
So let me ask it to you this way. If another plaintiff in this case didn't have a biopsy, does that mean they have fibrosis?
There'll be certain tests that can be done that are not what pathologists do that can identify fibrosis, such as radiologic testing. There are some radiologic tests that can detect fibrosis without having to do a biopsy.
Okay. So if there's no biopsy and those radiological tests are not done, is there any evidence of fibrosis?
There may be some abnormal liver function tests.
And if liver function tests have returned to normal, is there evidence of fibrosis?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Thank you, doctor. It's been very entertaining, very interesting. I learned something new every time I talk to you. Thank you very much. You have a good day.
Thank you.
Any questions from any jurors? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Watch your head, let me know. Council could come through. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, rather than start somebody and pause them 10 minutes into it, we'll go ahead and take our lunch break a little early now, come back at 1:15. During this recess, you're admonished not to talk and converse amongst yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected to the trial. Do not read, watch, or listen to any report of or commentary on the trial or any person connected with this trial by any medium of information, including without limitation to social media, text, newspapers, television, internet, radio. Do not visit the scene of any events mentioned during the trial. Do not undertake any investigation. Do not do any post communications on any social networking sites. Do not do any independent research, including internet searches. Do not form or express any opinion on any subject connected with the trial until the case finds to do. See back at 1:15.
Please rise for the jury.
Let's see, I forgot something. One thing to go back over before I forgot again. Juror number 3 was Power was the one who talked about potential, she recognized one of the witnesses from a possible collaboration between the two companies. Does anybody want to follow up on that?
Judge, I don't think it's a problem. We asked Mr. Carey if he recognized her, and he didn't recognize her. And from the report I got from you, it seemed like, casual contact.
Anything on the defendant's side?
No, Your Honor. That's fine, thanks.
Okay, so we'll keep her on as a juror. Anything else we need to talk about?
Depending on when you want to handle it, we can do it after, I think we can do it afternoon break.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay. So I'll see you back at 1:15. Putting us in awkward positions, if you do think you may need a depot transcript, let us know ahead of time. That way we can go through and know which transcript you want of how many ever we have. Don't put us in an awkward position.
All right, with that being said, do we have Anthony Randolph's deposition here?
And Dr. Hutt.
This is a perfect time to make that comment.
Yeah. And if there are multiple versions, let us know, because early there's sometimes multiple versions.
The Anthony Randolph deposition on dated December 11, 2023.
And then Dr. Hall?
TT.
Dr. Hutt will probably be with the real water boxes.
Dr. Hutt deposed in Gallagher
There's two. There's the
or the Wren?
Both, please.
Both?
to the jury, Your Honor.
Thank you for your service, for your patience. So the court is ready to proceed.
We are, Your Honor. Okay. The call is saying Mr. Anthony Randolph. Okay.
That's right, yeah.
Yes, thank you so much.
Raise your right hand, face the clerk, this one, please.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please be seated. State and spell your first and last name for the record.
Anthony Randolph, ANTHONY-RANDOLPH.
Thank you. Your Honor, see you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll try to keep you awake. I know you just had lunch, we all just had lunch. I'm trying to keep this interesting enough to stay awake. Mr. Anthony, how are you?
Pretty good.
Good. Mr. Anthony, it's my understanding that you worked for Real Water.
I did.
It's my understanding that you worked for Real Water from approximately 2009 until, I believe you were terminated in 2021.
Sounds like it. Somewhere around.
It's also my understanding, and Your Honor, let me just say this for the record. Although we called Mr. Anthony in our case in chief, I'd asked that the court allow me to treat him as a witness called under the Rule 50, NRS 50.11 spot.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor, can we call him Mr. Randolph?
I'm sorry, Mr. Anthony. Good enough. I don't believe I have an objection.
Say that again.
I just want to make sure we get his name right, Your Honor, that's all.
Okay, so yes, you may, and Mr. Anthony Randolph, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Randolph. And I apologize for calling you wrong, you may get it wrong. So you started out as a sales representative for Real Water, correct?
I did.
All right. It's my understanding that you remained a sales representative for several years and then ultimately became a vice president of distribution, is that correct?
Yes.
And the reason I say distribution, because I saw it two different ways in your deposition. I heard you reference VP of sales, but I also saw in letters where your title seems to be VP of distribution.
It was a title that I used loosely. I became the VP of sales, VP of distribution at one point. It was a small company, so it was titles thrown around a lot.
Yes, sir. And it's my understanding at one point you changed from a regular employee, a W-2 employee, to a 1099 employee consultant. Is that correct?
I did.
All right. But it's also my understanding, Mr. Randolph, that while your status may have changed, your responsibilities remain the same for Real Water. Is that correct?
To a degree.
And you still dealt with all of the vendors, distributors, sellers of Real Water the same, correct?
Not all, but a majority, those that I was contractually agreed to do so.
All right. And is it fair to say, Mr. Randolph, that Real Water had several, we'll talk about distributors first, had several distributors?
Yes.
That would be Nevada Beverage, for example,
Yes.
Core-Mark,
Yes.
anyone else?
Well, we stopped with Core-Mark when we switched with Nevada Beverage, but we had several Bellwether distributors. We had natural product distributors like KE. We had UNFI, which is another distributor, a national distributor. So we had several.
Yes, sir. Is it fair to say that you also had several large sellers of Real Water?
Retailers?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. When I say sellers, is that the same in your mind as retailers?
Nowadays, yes.
Okay. So that would be anyone selling directly to the public, correct?
Yes.
So let's talk about some of the larger companies. Would Whole Foods be one of them?
Yes.
How about Terrible's?
Yes.
It's my understanding that Terrible's had over 100 locations, is that correct?
Yes.
Speedy Mart,
Yes.
over 20 locations, is that correct?
I think, yeah.
Circle K,
We didn't have many Circle Ks. I wouldn't say that was a large chain.
but you had some.
We probably had product in some of them,
Sprouts,
yes.
City Stock,
Yes,
Whole Foods, right?
yes, you said that.
All right. Federal Shreddies,
Yeah,
Costco,
yes,
Albertsons,
at one time or another, yes.
Smith's,
At one time or another, yes.
Publix,
Yes.
Nature's Best,
Nature's Best is a distributor.
okay.
Was a distributor, got bought out by Katie.
Yes, sir. Walgreens,
At one point, we had some product in Walgreens, but nothing as large, like we weren't selling a lot of volume.
Winco,
Yes,
Mavericks.
we may have done some Mavericks.
Is it fair to say that Real Water was selling Real Water products throughout the majority of states in this country?
It was probably available, because we also sold online and shipped. So I was responsible for more of the West. We had other individuals that handled the East. The West did more business than the East. So I can't speak on, the product was probably in every state by weight, one way or another, if someone was buying online or not. Not necessarily a retailer though.
Okay. But you had retailers in many states, correct?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, I believe, I want you to think back to your deposition. Do you recall indicating during your deposition, sir, that Real Water was available or being sold in almost every state in the country?
Again, one way or the other, it was available for sale. We sell to distributors who then sell to retailers, so I don't know all the retailers that carry the product.
All right, can I assist the witness in recalling his deposition testimony on this point?
Sure, do you need it published then?
Yeah, I'd like to publish it for the record, but I can put it on the screen.
Okay, let's publish it, make sure which, what's the date of that one?
That is December 11th, 2023.
Is that the one you have?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, while she's doing that, officially publishing, is there any objection to putting it up on the screen as he asks?
No objection.
Okay.
And Your Honor, we have it on video. Hold on, let me first set the tone before Marshall Walker has something to say about it. Your Honor, may I play the video? We have it on video.
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay.
If you could, page 147.
Were y'all selling the retail water nationwide, Mr. Randolph?
Yes.
It says, I'm sorry, put that back up for a second.
I think, can I restart that? I think we got tripped over there.
About the blade machine.
Were y'all selling the retail water nationwide, Mr. Randolph?
Yes.
All 50 states, right?
Not sure if it was all 50, but most of them.
Thank you. So, Mr. Randolph, do you recall that testimony now?
That's me.
All right. So it's fair to say that at least back in December of last year, December 11th, was your recollection that Real Water is being sold in almost every one of our 50 states, correct?
Well, but I said that by one way or the other, I would say yes. I said that earlier.
Yes, sir. Was Real Water also being sold at CVS, sir?
At one time or another, yes.
Target?
I don't ever recall it being Target.
Green Valley Grocers?
Yes.
Silver Springs was a distributor.
Silver Springs, at one point was selling the 5-gallon on the road.
And is it fair to say that Real Water had social media outlets where it's promoting its product, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram?
We probably had Facebook and Instagram. I don't know if TikTok was, we had some social media, wasn't a great presence, but we had some, but I would assume that it's Facebook and maybe Instagram.
Yes, sir. And it is also fair to say that some of your retailers, like Terribles, would actually promote your product on their social media platforms, correct?
It's possible. I don't recall a definite time when it was happening, but it could have been. I definitely was trying to get them to do it.
And you had, if you recall, commercials that would play on Terrible's pumps.
Yes,
You were being promoted by Miss Universe, Miss USA. You had commercials including them, correct?
they were included in some commercials, some type of modeling organization that the company was part of at one point.
Yes, sir. UFC, MMA were also being sponsored by promoting real
We
water,
had-
correct?
We would give free product to anybody that we thought could be influential. So we would give them free product in return. We would ask if they would promote us, but it wasn't necessarily meaning they did that.
Yes,
But
sir.
it was all kind of anybody that, anybody.
And do you recall numerous celebrities being used to promote real water?
We did that to several people. However, we were fortunate because several celebs I would catch photos of them drinking the product. And when we would just utilize that in our marketing, doesn't mean that that person, was agreeing with what we were doing, but we never had anybody tell us to take them down.
Yes, sir. And was this all a part of trying to take advantage of the $21.7 billion auto water industry at the time?
We were trying to grow as much as possible, yes.
Yes, sir. Now, Mr. Randolph, do you recall a time when you began hearing problems with real water affecting people's health?
I got a phone call from, I was already, I wasn't with the company, but I got a phone call, I think from either Costco or one of the accounts. They called, trying to reach us to discuss whatever was going on.
Okay, do you remember the time that happened, the year, the month?
I stopped working on my birthday, so I know it's after February 5th.
Yes, sir.
And I think it is the year 2021.
That's exactly right.
So it was some in that time frame, March, April, I'm not sure, but between when it hit public information and after February 5th is when I received a phone call from one of the accounts, the large accounts, notifying us that they had have the product taken off their shelves and things like that.
Yes, sir. Well, let's take a step back, a few months back, actually. So just to give the jury some context, February 5th, 2021, that's your birthday. That's when you're talking about the calls you received and the termination.
Right, that's when I was so-called terminated.
That's right. And I don't know why someone termination on your birthday, but that's what
That type of relationship.
Yeah, apparently. But if we take it a few months before then, okay, do you recall a time in the fall of 2020 when you became aware of a number of customer complaints?
Oh, yes.
Objection, lax foundation.
You can answer, sir.
Yes.
Tell me what you recall about that time period in customer complaints.
The office had moved from West Desert Inn out to Henderson. So I would go out there. The bottled water, the ready-to-drink water was actually being produced in Arizona at the time. And they had an office with the 5-gallon jugs that stayed here in Vegas. And I wouldn't go to Arizona, so I stayed here in Vegas. So I would frequent that office out in Henderson. And going down there, talking to the couple of people that were running the 5-gallon plant, they started telling me about, people calling, getting sick. And then I actually, had some family members that got sick. And then I just started kind of asking questions and putting things together myself.
Okay, let's stop there for a second so that the jury is on the same page. I believe this was in October. I'm using this based upon your deposition, Mr. Randolph. If I make a mistake, please tell me. And if we need to, we can always put your deposition back on the screen. Do you recall this being October of 2020?
When people were getting sick, I'm gonna say it's October, because if I'm not mistaken, my nephew was hospitalized in like the first week of November or something like that. The people that I personally knew got hospitalized in like the beginning of November.
So you recall your own nephew getting sick in sometime in October, November of 2020?
Yes.
And he was drinking real water?
Yes.
Do you remember anyone else in your family, your family circle that got sick?
Yes.
Can you tell me who those were? And you don't need to name them.
Oh.
I'm just talking about that
It
relationship.
was my brother-in-law's best friend. He was hospitalized.
So you had two hospitalizations, one being your nephew and the other being your brother-in-law's best friend.
Yes,
And they both were drinking real water.
yes,
And did they have similar symptoms?
yes.
Okay, so this be vomiting, diarrhea, dizziness, confusion, all of those types of things?
Yeah, it was almost to the point where they were talking, was it a liver transplant? I don't know. They were hospitalized for 4 or 5 days each.
And so all of this is coming to your attention, not only from your, friend of a family member, but also your family in the October 2020 period.
Beginning of November for sure. Look, it was, I think probably got sick, but I know they were hospitalized beginning of November.
Yes, sir. And while this is happening, are you also becoming aware of customer complaints from the public?
I became aware of customer complaints by way of the two or three gentlemen that still work at the 5-gallon plant out in Henderson. They would tell me. I didn't speak to anyone else besides the owner's son who got sick, and then I found out some other people that we knew got sick, and I called on them as well to find out what was going on.
So at this point, you're hearing, you know personally of 2 people, but you're also hearing of multiple other people
Yes,
getting sick.
yes.
So then, do you at some time form an opinion that the only similarity between these people would be real water?
Yeah, when I had a conversation with the owner's son, because I know he was, became very ill, and it probably was in October, and I thought it was COVID, and they just didn't want anybody to know. But when my nephew and then another friend got sick, and then the phone calls that these guys were receiving in the office, then I asked the owner's son, his name is Blaine, I just said, I need to talk to you on a personal level. I know you were sick, can you tell me what happened? And he started describing everything that was going on, and it was identical to what my nephew and my brother-in-law best friend was experiencing. And so at that point, I told Blaine, I said, it's the water. I said, because the only thing you guys have in common is you drink the water. Because even though my brother-in-law's best friend, comes around the family all the time, but he and my nephew don't really, they don't jive like that. They're a different age group, everything else. So
Yes, sir.
At that point, I told Blaine, I said, you got to do a recall, man. There's something in the water. And that was probably beginning of November, something like that, middle of November.
And so you were forthright enough to come to Blaine, man to man, and I guess employee or sort of employee to vice president, he was the owner's son, and have this conversation in confidence.
I did.
And at this point, you're laying it on the line. You got it. And you have the epiphany. You have the realization that real water is the constant between all of these people.
I did.
And you tell him it is the water that's causing these sicknesses.
I did.
Did you tell him that your nephew was hospitalized?
I did.
Did you tell him that your brother-in-law's best friend was hospitalized?
I did.
Did he confide in you that he'd been hospitalized?
He did.
And despite all of that, along with the customer complaints you became aware of, let me stop right there. Did you inform him that you heard through your conversations with the employees at the Henderson location that customers were calling sick?
I did.
So you laid that all on the table for him.
I did.
And you gave him the opportunity to be reasonable by presenting him with the recall suggestion.
That was just my suggestion, yes.
And what did he say?
He said no, because I first thought it was the water, but then trying to remember everything that he said, trying to justify that it wasn't the water, and then I just told him, I said, Blaine, listen, we're getting numerous phone calls, according to, I think the gentleman's name was Anthony as well. They're fielding so many phone calls of people complaining. I know people that got sick. You were sick. You guys don't know each other. So it has to be the water.
Yes, sir.
And he just, I traced it back. It's not that many. He just kept trying to justify it. So I just left it alone. I thought I did my part and brought it up and went from there.
Now, this conversation happened sometime October, November 2020. Do you have a subsequent conversation with him again? Because you've told us already a little bit that you were getting calls from some of your retailers. Did you ever have a second conversation with Mr. Jones, Blaine Jones, trying to again recommend doing a recall?
I can't say 100% yes or no. I don't recall. I remember that initial conversation because he, confided in me and told me what he was experiencing.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure, just because that became the talk. When you go to the office, that just became the talk of, what was going on. So I'm gonna say possibly, but I can't tell you for sure that I had a direct conversation like I did in the beginning with him.
All right, let me see if I can refresh your recollection again by use of your deposition. Your Honor, I'd like to put page 161, line 22, I believe.
Any objection?
Objection.
What's the end designation, Mr. Parker?
Page 161, and it is line 17 through 162, line 7. And there are no objections in between.
And then, was that conversation, Mr. Randolph, before you spoke to Mr. Jones and encouraged him to do a recall?
I don't recall the timing of it all, but it was in the same area, the same time frame, because again, and I had numerous conversations with Blaine about doing a recall, and he wanted me to go into business with him or represent him selling the concentrate at the beginning of the year. And we had conversations about I didn't know how many people got sick. I knew to the degree of some. I know some personally, but I didn't, I had numerous conversations with Blaine, who kind of ran the 5-gallon plant.
Thank you very much. So does that refresh your recollection?
It actually does.
So you, not only after having the first conversation requesting a recall, you had follow-up conversations with him, and you're using your words, numerous conversations, all the way into the beginning of the year, and he still wouldn't do a recall.
Yeah, because we did talk about, what reminded me, he did want me to go out and sell the concentrate itself. So we had conversations about, obviously, the problems that were going on, as well as how could we do something going forward.
So let's think about this. You're having your nephew get sick, the best friend of your brother-in-law, people that you're hearing about through the operations at Henderson, and despite all of that, including him getting sick, Mr. Jones getting sick, he's still trying to push the concentrate.
Yes.
So, Mr. Randolph, later on, you start receiving calls in the beginning of the year from some of those retailers, correct?
Yeah, I remember one or two, maybe.
Okay. You remember, I believe you testified that Costco may have called and others may have called. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
All right. And they're calling you because they're getting notifications of complaints from customers, correct?
I think when the first phone call I got was more of, hey, we received some notification that we have to, take this. It was somebody that I didn't normally speak with. It was more like in their compliance department, or I don't know what department they called me from.
Yes,
and at the time, I didn't work for the company, so I just referred them over to, I gave them Brent's cell phone number.
And just to give you some more context, during your deposition, you indicated that you spoke to him in October, you spoke to him in November, and then I just gave you the portions talking about going into the beginning of the year. Do you recall sometime between November and the time they terminated you, February 5th, receiving those calls from your retailers? Just to put it in the chronological order.
I don't think I received a call from a retailer like Costco because I was no longer representing the company at that point. So I just, of course, answered the call and listened to what they had to say. And I didn't represent the company anymore and didn't care, but I just gave him the owner's cell phone.
Well, I'm gonna do you a service, Mr. Randolph. You actually did seem to care, despite what they did to you. I'm gonna see if I can refresh your recollection on those calls in November and then beginning of the year. I'd like to show you your deposition testimony, pages 152, line 3 through 154, line 18.
Any objection?
What was the first part of that?
Yes, sir. Eric, it's page 152, line 3.
No objection.
Jane, if you could, please.
Fall of 2020, after Real Water moves out of Desert Inn, are you aware of a number of complaints that came in regarding people having symptoms from drinking the water in the Vegas area?
It was brought to my attention in, I think, the end of October, beginning of November, that people, well, I knew some people that got sick, and I knew the owner's son was hospitalized at one point, and this is probably at the end of October, November. I thought maybe he had COVID, but then after speaking to some of the people that worked at the new location out in Henderson, and they told me they were getting a lot of complaints, I just started doing my own little looking into it, and I realized that it had to be water because the people that I knew that got sick, they didn't know each other, and they had the same symptoms. And the one thing I did know that they did the same was drink real water. So I went to Blaine Jones, which was the owner's son, and I asked him to tell me what happened to him. I said, I know you're in the hospital. Please, I'm not trying to get into your personal business, but what took place? What happened? And when he explained to me what happened, I told him right then and there, I said, Blaine, you must do a recall. The water is something in the water. I said, I know a couple of people now that have gotten back to me that have been sick with the exact same symptoms, and the only thing that you guys have in common is you drink the 5-gallon home jug. You must do a recall. He refused. That was in November, and it wasn't until I think, again, I got a phone call from their new sales manager or VP of sales or whoever he was. It was actually on my birthday, so it was February 5th of, if you're saying they closed in 2021, so that was February 5th of 21, that I received a phone call saying that, hey, we're going to terminate, your independent status. It was a 2-minute phone call. We left it at that. I was going to pursue whatever I had to pursue going forward. And then I remember getting a phone call from, I believe, Costco or Sprouts or Whole Foods, because although I let everybody know I was no longer with the company, I guess I still was down because I've talked to these people for so many years. And all of a sudden I got a call, I think it was Costco first, from their quality department. And that's how I found out what was going on. And then I let the young lady know, I don't remember who called me, but I let the young lady know that I no longer represent the company, and I gave her Brent Jones' cell phone number. And then when I got off the phone with that person, I got another call, and then another call, and then they just start coming in.
Does that refresh your recollection now, Mr. Randolph?
Yeah, I've been saying that.
And sir, despite your best efforts, Real Water didn't do a recall in October, November, December, January, February.
I don't think they ever got a recall.
And would you agree with me, Mr. Randolph, that had a recall been done when you asked for it to be done back in October, people who got sick in November, December may not have drank that water?
Objection calls for speculation.
You could refrain.
Sure. If a recall was done, you would agree with me that the 5-gallon deliveries would have stopped being delivered.
I would think so, in general recall, yes.
Shelves, bottles be taken off the shelves.
It wasn't, I couldn't say, it was the 5-gallon was not on the shelf. The 5 gallons was not sold at
I'm
retail.
talking about the real water shelves.
I mean, I don't know, because those were separate, so it could have, depended on how their crisis team would have dealt with it. The ready-to-drink product is sold totally separate from the 5-gallon jugs.
So in terms of your crisis, what you're talking about, something would have happened.
I would guess that something would have happened.
Notification would have gotten to the public.
I would suggest it, I guess.
Then perhaps people would not have drank water that was getting other people sick, correct?
Definitely the 5-gallon jugs.
I'll pass it with you, Sean. Thank you, Mr. Randolph.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Mr. Randolph.
Good afternoon.
My name is Eric Freeman. I represent Real Water. Right off the bat, I wanted to ask, you've never had a meeting with me or any of the Real Water attorneys, have you?
This is, I think I got a deposition, and I don't know if you were part of it. There was a bunch of people were part of it, so.
Yeah, you had a deposition, meant more of a traditional sit-down meeting or a phone call or something.
I've never had a meeting with anybody.
You worked for Real Water for about 12 to 13 years,
Somewhere around there, yes.
and you were also a Real Water customer, is that right?
Yes,
You had the Real Water home delivery to your home?
yes,
Now, you learned about alkaline water before you were employed with Real Water, is that right?
yes,
You were a believer in alkaline water, is that correct?
yes,
You thought it was beneficial for people,
I did, yes.
and as part of your job of selling it, it made it easy to sell.
When you're a product of the product, yes.
Now, you were an employee and then at some point transitioned to an independent contractor, but it didn't change your role much. You were still a commission-paid person, seller?
Yes, commission, yes.
So really, the only change was you fill out your tax forms differently.
Well, I also didn't have as much responsibility. I wasn't, I didn't have to worry about building a team anymore. It was just all about me. I became a solo.
Okay. But either way, you were always focused on the selling of Real Water, correct?
Yes,
And I believe, although sales was your focus, it was a small company, so you'd have to jump in and help out here and there. Is that right?
yes.
You weren't involved in the actual production of the water at Real Water, were you?
No, I may have helped every now and then, but nothing very small, very minor. If we got behind or something, I might go back there and help them package it, not produce the product though.
Okay. Again, just kind of jumping in and helping out a small company.
Right.
You didn't make the concentrate.
No.
Were you involved in any of the testing of the Real Water?
I mean, I would run my own testing because I would use it when we were out at shows or when I went to meet with buyers. I would use ORP meters and things of that nature, kind of explain them what it does, and I would do my own test. But I'm not gonna say it was the most accurate testing that I would do. It was more for show.
It wasn't the official testing that
Correct.
the water had to go under?
Correct.
You weren't involved with compliance with state and federal regulations?
Correct, was not.
In fact, do you have any knowledge regarding the work Real Water had to do to comply with federal and state regulations?
It wasn't my responsibility. I've met with the health department before, and to be honest with you, I can't even remember why we all went. But I've done that, but it wasn't my responsibility. It was just another small business. Everybody put hands in and was sure to make something happen.
Have you ever heard of hydrazine?
Nothing more than I think I read that they said was in the product.
Now, it kind of brings me to another point. Now that you sit here today, years later, you know more than what you did in the fall of 2020, correct?
About?
About real water and the eventual recall and...
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't associated with the company anymore, so it didn't have that big of an impact. You know, I was gonna chase them down and try to get paid, but other than that, I kind of disconnected myself.
But now, and since your deposition, you had a lot of information provided to you, which was less than 6 months ago. You learned a lot more about real water and the lawsuit, correct?
Yeah.
Maybe you
Sure.
Thank you for your patience. Okay, you can continue.
Okay, give me a second to figure out where I was. Sure. I want to go back to where you were testifying about you thought possibly there maybe should be a recall. At that point in November of 2020, was that just speculation?
Yeah, there was no scientific evidence or proof. I just was trying to use a little common sense that I thought I had.
And you said it first was brought to your attention because a person you knew got sick sometime after October 31st or Nevada Day. Halloween, as the rest of the country knows it.
Yes.
Is that about right? Okay, and then, so that means you would have talked to Blaine for the first time in November?
Correct.
Now, you said in your conversations with Blaine that he ruled out that it was the water because he did some testing?
I'm just trying to go off memory, but yeah, it was something like, oh no, I ruled it out, I tested the water, you know, everything was great, so.
Do you know what testing you did?
Actually, I don't know.
And you didn't do any testing?
I did not.
Did you do any independent investigation?
Yeah, I talked to those that were answering the calls, filtering the calls. I talked to, obviously, the people I knew that was sick. And I'm trying to think of the other gentleman that got sick. He's a UFC fighter. I can't think of his name for some reason right now. But I spoke to him, and then he, you know, I asked him, I heard you got sick, what happened? Talk to me. He told me the same thing everybody else was saying, and so that was my investigation.
Okay. And some people had thought maybe COVID was a possibility. There were a lot of questions.
No, I thought Blaine, I knew Blaine got sick. Blaine was the first person I heard got sick, but I didn't know what it was. And they didn't tell us what it was. So I just assumed it was COVID because they didn't believe in COVID. And I just said, oh, they don't want people to know he got sick. He got COVID. But it wasn't until, again, after the people that you know, my nephew got sick after Halloween and was hospitalized for 4 days. The day he gets out, my brother-in-law best friend is going in the hospital. I knew a young lady that worked at the hospital. I called her like, hey, you guys having an influx of liver problems? And she was like, that's the hospital. We got liver problems all the time. So I was trying, you know, do whatever I could. But just when hearing the people and talking to the people, if I was able to speak to the ones that were sick, that got sick, and then when I piece it together, that's the water.
That was the opinion formulated?
That was my opinion, yes. That is my opinion.
Did you report any problem to the Southern Nevada Health District?
I did not.
Did you still have real water in your home at that time?
Believe it or not, my daughter found a bottle yesterday, so I still have water in my house right now.
Now, in your years working for Real Water, Did you ever have to deal with the issue of water quality?
I mean, I think when I went through that deposition, you guys showed like like 1 or 2 complaints that we had.
I'm talking about you directly.
I didn't deal with I didn't send any water out to get tested on a weekly basis. I didn't do any of that. It wasn't my responsibility.
So you weren't aware of any water quality issues?
Correct.
I think you testified before, the only problems that you had working with real water was sometimes the ability to fill an order or a late delivery. Is that right?
That was a huge problem, yes. I don't know if that was the only problem I had, but that's definitely the main problem I had, or that we had as a company.
Okay, there was a question by Mr. Parker about trying to break into a billion-dollar industry or something to that effect. Real water wasn't selling billions, was it?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. Yeah, come on up. The objection sustained, ladies and gentlemen. Disregard that question.
Just a couple more questions, sir. When you joined Real Water, you thought it was a great product.
Yeah, it is a great product.
And you thought it was a great product because you thought they were making something that was good for people.
Correct.
And do you have any idea somehow how hydrazine was being created in water, in Real Water's water product?
I don't. They had a proprietary process and none of us was involved in when they made the concentrate. I've drank the concentrate straight before, I mean, myself. I mean,
That is all the questions I have. Thank you very much.
Any reserve?
Just briefly, Your Honor.
Sure.
Randolph, when you went and spoke to Mr. Blaine Jones, the son of the owner, vice president of this company, did he show you any test results?
no,
Did he indicate to you that I've had an independent company come out and test whether or not there's any poisons in this water?
no,
He wanted you to just accept his word, despite you asking him on numerous occasions to do a recall.
I assume that's what he expected, yes.
And this is the same guy that fired you on your birthday, and then, on top of that, didn't pay you.
He's not the one that called me. So if he had something to do with the behind the scenes, great, but I was terminated on my birthday. But it was by the new sales manager, and I don't remember his name.
And when you were talking about this proprietary process, they never let you see how that was being made, did they?
No,
They did it in some separate closed-off room, correct?
correct.
And only Blaine Jones would be allowed to do it, correct?
I think there's like 2 or 3 people in there. It was Blaine, his dad, and maybe the inventor. And from what I understood, they kind of made it a big secret, and they gave a family member this piece of the puzzle and that person. And if something happened to them, they can all bring it together and recreate it. But it was only a couple people that knew how to do it. Blaine is who did it, although Brent may have known how or the gist of it, but he didn't. Blaine is the guy.
And so when Real Waters Council came up here and asked you those questions about speculation, the only reason you were speculating is because they wouldn't tell you how it was made.
Speculating
Objection by
about.
foundation, calls for speculation.
Rephrase your question.
Sure. He's asking you whether or not you were speculating as to this water problem.
Speculating about what? That's what we
What
said.
caused the problem? What caused the sicknesses? What caused the injuries? He's asking you whether or not you were
Yeah,
speculating.
it was my own, you know, yes,
Is it fair to say you were not speculating that your nephew got sick?
correct,
You weren't speculating that your nephew was in the hospital for 4 or 5 days?
correct.
You weren't speculating. You weren't speculating that your brother-in-law's best friend was in the hospital sick.
I'm not speculating.
You weren't speculating that all of the symptoms that Mr. Blaine Jones himself had after telling you this, and everyone else that you knew about had the same exact symptoms,
Yeah, very similar symptoms of not being back.
and drank the same real water.
And they drink the water.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any requests?
No, Your Honor.
Any questions? Okay. Counsel can come through.
Your Honor, can we approach 1 second? I sure think there's something.
Sure. So ladies and gentlemen, we got a couple of questions from jurors, so thank you first and foremost, because it means you've all paid attention doing your duties as jurors. Both questions are excellent questions, just not questions for this particular witness. And so in discussion with counsel, we will not be giving these particular questions to this particular witness. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Or just watch
Oh.
your head. Just watch your head,
Oh,
please.
sorry.
Okay, who do we have next?
Your Honor, we call Dr. Catherine Adams-Hutt, please.
Thanks, sir. Just watch your step. If you remain standing, raise your right hand, face the clerk, to be sworn in, please.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated, state and spell your first and last name for record.
My first name is Catherine, C-A-T-H-E-R-I-N-E. My last name is Adams-Hutt, 2 words, A-D-A-M-S, space H-U-T-T.
Yeah, here, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Hutt, could you tell the jury what you studied in college?
I studied food science and human nutrition through a bachelor's of science degree at Pennsylvania State University, a master's degree at Michigan State University, and a PhD, a doctoral degree from the University of Illinois.
And what is food science?
Food science is the chemistry of food. It involves the agricultural product all the way through any type of processing or manufacturing into a finished product that then becomes a consumer good sold at retail or through a food service restaurant type of situation. But it's the science and everything that's associated with the transformation of a raw agricultural commodity, whether it be a fruit, vegetable, meat, poultry, fish, grain, into something that we would consume as a finished product, if you will.
And after being out of college, where did you go?
I went first to the I went first to a trade association called the International Life Sciences Institute Nutrition Foundation. I was there for a short period of time, and then I went to the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
And what does the U.S. Department of Agriculture do generally?
Well, they do a lot of things relative to food. I started with the Extension Service. I spent a period of time training food safety for national food safety programs with the National Extension Service. There are 3,500 counties throughout the United States that have extension programs. And then I became ultimately assistant administrator of the Food Safety and Inspection Service, which is the regulatory arm of the Department of Agriculture, which is the federal regulatory agency for meat and poultry. I graduated from my doctoral program in 1986. I joined the Department of Agriculture in 1987, 1988, and was there until 1991. I became first special assistant to the administrator, and then ultimately the assistant administrator, who is the number 3 ranking person, the top 3 ranking person in the department of about 7,500 veterinarians and other unionized labor within the agency.
And while you were at the Department of Agriculture, did you have any interaction with Congress?
I did. I had a wonderful opportunity to usher in a new form of inspection for meat and poultry, which has become the way that meat and poultry, as well as every other food commodity in the world, is regulated for food safety. We started a program called the Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point System. Its acronym is HACCP, H-A-C-C-P. And
Can I have a slide that has some slide shape? Just so everybody knows. Okay. Can you see that?
yes. And I had the opportunity to usher in, as I said, a new way of inspection. Up until this point, inspection for meat and poultry, as well as other food commodities, other food that were regulated through the Food and Drug Administration, were regulated through a type of inspection would be called floors, walls, and ceilings. An inspector would walk into a facility, look at the condition of the floors, was it sanitary, were there holes in the floors, other things that would hold debris, the walls, were they sanitary, were they clean, free of dust, the ceilings, were they free of condensate, things like that. Condensate can drip bacteria onto food. So it was basically a visual inspection. And through the 1980s, actually late 1970s and 1980s, there was development in food inspection methodology that the National Academy of Sciences was recommending, as well as NASA, the space program, was using for developing space foods or foods for astronauts. You don't want to get sick in space, and so you wanted to have an ironclad way of making sure that people weren't going to get sick, that food safety was assured, and they developed a tool called HACCP, H-A-C-C-P. We took the tool that NASA developed, which was 3 steps, and through an international consensus building organization, through an international organization called the Codex Alimentarius, we developed it into the 7 steps, which are truly what we know as HACCP today. And we evolved that in the late 1980s. And then I worked as a catalyst and as a leader to integrate that into the regulatory framework for the Department of Agriculture for meat and poultry. Meanwhile, the Food and Drug Administration was working on doing the same thing within the FDA for other food goods, and the international community, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, Asia, were all using HACCP as the tool for food safety regulation. So it became the worldwide tool for food safety regulation that started in the late 1980s, evolved as a regulatory program in the 1990s, and is today the way that food is regulated for food safety.
Okay. And did there come a time you left the Department of Agriculture?
I did. I left in 1991.
Where'd you go?
I went to a trade association in Washington, D.C. called the Grocery Manufacturers of America.
What was your job there?
It was in charge of food safety. I ran committees that were working with industry on food safety evolution. I'd become something of a leader, a recognized leader in next generation types of quality and food safety programs. And so I stayed there for a period of time. Frankly, trade association work was not what I wanted to do. So I moved into the industry where I could actually implement things.
Okay. And by industry, you worked at
I moved first into Campbell Soup Company and worked out of Camden, New Jersey with their global program. And I was in charge of what we call next generation food safety programs, next generation quality programs. It integrated a tool which we called HACCP, which was for food safety, into a quality management scheme based on an international standard called ISO 9000, ISO, which is the International Standardization Organization. 9000 is their quality management series. And basically it was a framework that you install the HACCP program in, the 7 steps of HACCP. And it was a tool which I say embraced the HACCP food safety tool and helped ingrain and make sure that the program did not erode over a period of time. And we installed this program, which included HACCP, but also ISO 9000 in 100 plants globally for Campbell Soup Company.
Any plants in the United States?
Yes, there were about 30 or 40 plants in the United States we made. At that time, Campbell's had not only soup products and beans and other things, lots of beverage products. Also, there was a chicken manufacturing plant and then several plants globally.
And after Campbell's, where did you work?
I went to, I love food service, I love the restaurant industry, so I went to work for Yum Brands. And Yum Brand is a parent company for Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and KFC restaurants. And I worked out of their Dallas office on their global programs for food safety and quality.
And did that also involve HACCP?
Yes, HACCP was part of what everybody was doing at that point, and also within the restaurant industry. So I helped usher in HACCP as a tool, a food safety tool for the restaurant industry. The restaurant industry works very collaboratively through the National Restaurant Association as well. So we worked holistically in really bringing this food safety tool to the entire food service industry. But my job at Yum was to work with the supplier quality. So I worked with the suppliers to the ingredients going into Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and KFC restaurants. And then also I was in charge of food safety in the restaurants for Yum Brands globally.
Okay, and after working for Yum Brands, where did you work?
I went back into manufacturing and became a vice president for H.J. Heinz and was in charge of quality systems for North America, which included food safety programs.
And that's ketchup?
Well, yes, Heinz has ketchup, but a lot of other products too. Frozen foods, for example, at that time we also had a brand which I don't remember, but we also were just acquiring the Linda McCartney line. So we worked actually with Linda McCartney on the development for her vegetarian for vegan line. We had a lot of products, including the condiments, of course, but also soups and beans. And globally, the company had a lot of different products, meat products in Australia, and a lot of different beverages as well.
Okay, and after you set up the Heinz program, where did you go?
I went to work for Coors Brewing Company. I was Chief Quality Officer for Coors Brewing Company. I was only there for a year. It was actually an interim. I was actually interviewing for a Chief Quality Officer job with McDonald's Corporation. The job search just went quiet for a period of time, which I didn't understand why. I learned later on that the CEO had passed away and that they just kind of put everything on ice for a while. So basically I worked for Coors Brewing Company for a year as their Chief Quality Officer, and then McDonald's came back and wanted to hire me as their Chief Quality Officer also for their global brand, and that included food safety as well.
Okay, about what period of time was that?
January 2003, and I was there until 2008, June of 2008.
And did you implement a HACCP-based systems at McDonald's?
Yes, McDonald's was working on HACCP programs because HACCP had become a tool within the food service industry, so it was pretty well ingrained at that point. I did some other innovative work in installing some very innovative software that we actually integrated product development with marketing, with product design through the product development team, but also through the quality team, and then orchestrating what we call a workflow-enabled product lifecycle management software program that integrated HACCP into that tool as well.
Okay, when you say product design, you actually design hamburgers, fries?
Well, yes, I was part of the design team that we, at that time we were going through the trans fat issue. McDonald's notably was the first company to call it out as a health issue and work on substitution, the last company to do it, because we had very, very high standards. I was part of that team. I was part of the coffee redesign team, which enabled the Concept Mac Cafe to be born, basically, because we needed some more credibility in building our coffee brand. But I was very much a part of the product design team as well as the food safety and quality team. My role was also part of the supply chain, so I worked with all the ingredient suppliers to McDonald's globally in their food safety responsibilities as well.
Okay, and after helping these companies get their HACCP program in place, what have been?
I became a consultant in 2008, and I've been a consultant since 2008, doing a variety of different work, including crisis management for various companies, expert witness for various companies as well, in various roles, and doing other quality and food safety support and advising. I'm also Chief Science and Regulatory Officer for a small consumer trends company called Sloan Trends, and we advise clients like Starbucks and Panera and Sonic and a lot of other companies, PepsiCo, on brand management and other new products that they're thinking about bringing to the marketplace or would like to know where they should be slotting their next product line. So we advise them in that category as well.
And all these big companies use HACCP, Campbell's, McDonald's, Heinz.
Everybody uses HACCP. HACCP has been ingrained as a food safety tool for meat and poultry since, as I discussed, the early 1990s. It is also the framework for the 2010 Food Safety Modernization Act, which is acronym is FSMA, FSMA, you might have heard that. But it was enacted in 2010 and became a regulatory tool for the FDA-regulated products in 2016. Required to be implemented in 2016 for most businesses. And so it's based on the 7 principles of HACCP. They use a different terminology. It's called HARP-C, Hazard Analysis Risk Prevention Controls. But it's based on the same elements as HACCP is.
Okay, now in this case, what materials did you look at?
In this case, I looked at a variety of depositions. I looked at a number of different real water documents, audits through the NSF organization. I looked at
Southern Nevada Health District report?
oh yes, yes. Yes.
And let's try to sit out your general opinions first of all, and then we'll go into each one.
Yes.
Shane, can I have a slide? So, in fact, why don't you put them all out there, Shane, and we'll have the witness go through them real quick. Can you see that, Dr. Hutt?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, Jim, Dr. Hutt had an accident last week, so I'm not going to ask her to come down like I did with Dr. Datnow.
The back is not 100%.
All right, you can see that okay, though?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the first point?
The first point is that Real Water did not have a quality assurance program of leadership for quality assurance.
And let's just go through them all. Second point.
There was general disregard for regulatory requirements in real water manufacturing.
Third point.
Deficiencies existed in employee training by Real Water.
Fourth.
Deficiencies existed in Real Water's standard operating procedures.
And fifth.
Real Water had a deficient or non-existing food safety plan.
Okay, let's start with the first one. What does that mean? What is quality assurance and what do you mean by leadership?
Well, let me back up half a step and just talk about what quality assurance does holistically. We are not admin people. We're professionals trained in using procedures, documenting procedures. ISO 9000 I talked about as the quality management tool. I regard it as the blueprint for how quality management is done, not just in the food industry. Actually, I started to help bring it into the food industry, but it was being done in the automobile industry and everywhere else. And it was new to the food industry, but it's truly the blueprint in how you establish quality and how you document it and how you maintain it for the long term, full stop. And it's all required, it's all about requirements of knowing what your specification is, how you design your product in order to deliver that specification every time, every day you make it. It's all about delivering on a specification. We use the term quality. It's not arbitrary, but in my terminology, quality is hitting your target. You can have high quality, you can have low quality. You can be making a Mercedes-Benz, you can be making a Kia, it doesn't matter. But what you're doing is hitting your target 100% of the time, all the time. It's about eliminating variability. We talk about Six Sigma variability. We want basically very, very low variability in our process. So it's all about delivering, knowing what our target is, and delivering that consistently every day. If you're in the kitchen, for example, we might make a meatloaf, but we're going to make that meatloaf every day, the same texture, the same taste, the same ingredients, the same weight, the same nutritional value. Everything is going to be the same. That's what quality assurance is. And we do that by having procedures. And they're called standard operating procedures, they're called work instructions at various levels, but the idea is that it's all documented. And that's how we train people, and that's how we convey information consistently, and that's how we manufacture a product with very low variability consistently according to the specification every day. That's quality assurance. So I look at Real Water's program, and they didn't have quality assurance. We talked about the concentrate. There was no standard operating procedure for manufacturing concentrate. It's called proprietary. That's fine. They're proprietary things. KFC's 11 herbs and chicken recipe had a proprietary recipe as well. Heinz ketchup has a proprietary recipe, but it's documented and it's not accessible to everybody, but those who need to know it, and those who are in manufacturing of that product are aware of how they do it and how they do it consistently. So we're not trying to keep information. You're trying to document information and convey it to those who need to know it consistently so that product can be made the same way every time. So the issue with Real Water is they didn't have standard operating procedures, not for concentrate, not for anything in their operation. They had a variety of other, I call them faux pas, deficiencies. In their quality program, they didn't have labeling. For example, their chemicals were not labeled. That's a recipe for disaster because you don't know what's in a container if it's not labeled. You could be putting sanitizer in something that's an ingredient and you just don't know. So you want all this material to be labeled, you want it all to be documented. And Real Water just didn't have any of those basics, those fundamentals of a quality program. And then, we talk about training, they didn't have, and I know training's another element, but it's a huge piece of this whole
Let's start with leadership first.
Okay, so the leadership for training is also very important as well, but the leadership, it had just complete, there was no quality assurance program. People were being designated quality assurance directors with absolutely no preparation, no training, but no awareness of what that role entitled and what they were actually accountable for. We can have.
We're getting to an area here, Your Honor.
Let me give a little more direction. You're familiar with a person named Patty Converse?
Yes.
You looked at her deposition?
Yes.
In your view, did she have the qualifications to be a quality assurance director?
No. My understanding is that she was hired first as receptionist, and then she was promoted to a assistant quality assurance director. The issue, that's not a problem, but she's trained and she's prepared for that role and knows what that role is. In this case, Ms. Converse was not trained and not prepared. She was just given a title. And that's not leadership. That's not quality assurance.
You looked at her deposition?
Yes.
She admitted herself she's not qualified, right?
She did.
All right. And let's go to the second point. Can I have the 5 general points back to the sharing? Take a look at the second point. Okay. General disregard to regulatory requirements. What does that mean?
Well, in multiple instances, I just saw where, and these are documented, I think, through the third-party audits done by the National Sanitation Foundation, the NSF audits.
Let's stop right there. So you say an audit. First of all, what is an audit?
An audit is an objective third party looking at your operation according to a standard. So they're comparing how your operation measures up relative to a published standard.
And Real Water did have annual audits?
They did have annual audits. They're required actually as a bottled water company to have an annual audit according to the bottled water regulations of FDA. So the NSF actually was doing a bottled water regulation audit, which has, that's the standard in which they were basing everything. But basically the results of those audits routinely showed not just minor deficiencies, but huge, gross deficiencies. in their regulatory compliance.
Okay, we'll get into one of those in a minute. And so, your water was sold at Costco,
Yes,
and Costco required these annual audits, right?
Costco requires all of their suppliers to have annual audits, yes.
Okay, and the third thing is deficiencies in employee training, and you told us about that? Well,
Yes.
Say, well, let's back up. What kind of training would a new employee get at, say, one of these companies like Campbell's or Heinz?
Well, again, let's go back to my role as a professional. Our adage is we never ask anyone to do anything for which they're not properly trained and prepared to do, meaning that they have the right training, formalized as well as on-the-job shadow training. They have the right resources. You don't ask a person to do something for which they do not have the right resources, and that's management's responsibility. That is a principle within ISO 9000, by the way, but it's also a very important one. So when you have somebody who is being asked to do a job and you haven't provided them formal training or any other training, then that is just not, it's not fair, number one, to the employee, but it's also not right, and you're going to end up with a problem because that person doesn't know what they're responsible for. They don't know what they're responsible for. They don't know what their role as a quality professional is. Mr. Datnow was another example of a person who was given a title, Quality Assurance Director, with no information about what that role was.
And that's Jeffrey Datnow, correct?
Yeah, Jeffrey Datnow.
I think he'll be here to testify Friday, I hope.
Yes, but there are multiple examples of that people were given roles without any standard operating procedures that were documented. So they had nothing in writing to work off of, and they weren't giving formal training or informal training. And it was at best, according to Mr. Jones, Blaine Jones, on-the-job, ad hoc, word-of-mouth training. And that simply isn't a quality professional's role. I mean, that's not how we do quality and ensure consistency on a daily operation.
Hey, let's talk about food safety plans. What is that?
A food safety plan could be a general term. In this case, it's actually a very specific term as well, because through the FDA's FSMA, Food Safety Modernization Act requirements, you have to have, if you're going to manufacture food, you have a registered facility. We had deficiencies in that area as well, but you have to have an FDA registered facility, and you have to have a food safety plan. Food safety plan has certain elements. It's described in 21 Code of Federal Regulations, Part 117. That is the FSMA regulations. It's all documented as to what a food safety plan includes. And it's HACCP. It starts with the 7 steps of HACCP. And I can certainly outline those if you like.
Now, with regards to customer complaints, first of all, what should a company, food or bottled water manufacturer, do with regards to customer complaints?
Well, first of all, you should collect them because they are a very important part of the feedback mechanism. You know, you design something, you manufacture it, you sell it, and then you have something to come back from the customer to say, you're doing your job. You're doing everything that you think you're doing it correctly. If you get complaints, then something is wrong. And as a quality professional, we look for certain triggers in customer complaints. We're looking for things that kind of are red flags. For example, if you have more than one complaint about a single manufacturing lot, a lot can be a day's production, it can be a week's production, whatever you designate as a lot, L-O-T. But basically, if you have more than one complaint about a single lot, that is a huge red flag because it tells you something is wrong with that. And you do something about those things. If you have a trend, you monitor your consumer complaints for trends. If you have something, for example, as simple as overweight trends or underweight trends, underfilled trends, those can be triggers for looking into regulatory compliance as well as consumer expectations. But also food safety. If you get some food safety comments back from customers, then you know you're going to look at something. But you have to have someone accountable for looking at those complaints and doing something about them. And in this case, Real Water did not have anyone accountable for looking at customer complaints. Even their quality assurance directors, Mr. Datnow, for example, commented that he did not have visibility to the customer complaints. If he had, he would have done something about them, even though he wasn't trained in quality. He knew that was common sense. You do something about complaints that you see. But he didn't have visibility to them because Real Water's leadership, Blaine Jones and others, did not give him that accountability or that ability to see what customers were saying in response to the problems that they were seeing.
Now, you said that if you had multiple complaints from the same lot, that's a red flag?
That's a big red flag, yes.
Why is that?
Because it tells you definitively something is wrong. To have them from the single manufacturing lot, for example, just as an indication that limited scope of complaint, because people don't always complain. Most people who get something just simply don't buy it again, but those who care enough or are bothered enough, will complain. But for two customers to complain about a product in the same lot, especially if it's only a day's production, for example, then that's that really requires not only just investigation, but root cause analysis and doing something about it, because you've got a problem there.
And did Real Water have multiple customer complaints for the same lot?
Yes, in 2014, there was a similar type of complaint about the same manufacturing lot for a gasoline-like smell and a chemical odor in the product, yes.
And if a bottled water manufacturer got 2 complaints from the same lot, such as you've indicated, what, if anything, should they have done in terms of investigation?
Well, they should have, let me back up half a step again. We have product retains, we call them retains. Every lot should have a product sample that is held back from sale, and you just keep it for the shelf life of that product in case something comes back, and then you can go back to that product retain and test it in whatever manner would be appropriate. In this case, they should have tested it for something along the lines of a gasoline type smell that would have been indication for a GC, a gas chromatograph, mass spectroscopy test, something that would look for volatiles and look for whatever that unknown is, and none of that was done.
Let's test Shane out. Shane, can I have a picture of the GCMS machine? Oh, there we go. Mr. Parker was ahead of me. Okay, and what is this, Dr.?
Objection, Your Honor, may I approach?
Sure. Take this, thanks. So sometimes time gets away from us a little bit, so when we finished, I looked up and saw it's almost 3, so probably a good time to take a break right now, because we have a little bit to discuss. Let's keep it simple. Come back at 3:15. So come back at 3:15. During this recess, you're admonished not to talk or converse amongst yourselves. Do not talk or converse amongst yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this trial. Do not read, watch, or listen to any report of the commentary on the trial or any person connected with this trial by any medium of information, including without limitation. 2. Social media, text, newspapers, television, internet, and radio. Do not visit the scene of any events mentioned during the trial. Do not undertake any investigation. Do not do any posts or communications on any social networking sites. Do not do any independent research, including internet searches. Do not form or express any opinion on any subject connected with the trial until the case findings submitted to you. See you back at 3:15.
Please rise for the jury.
Should we come back at 3:10 and talk about anything, or are we good?
Mr. Parker had an issue that he wanted to address this afternoon.
Before the pleasure.
Right. I agree. That's fine.
Okay, so we'll just come back.
Yeah, thank you.